Testing, testing. Testing, 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 testing. Hopefully people can hear this. Just a test of the live stream. The video quality is not particularly great, but it's a start. Probably no one. Two people. Who's the two people? So, while we're waiting for people to join, hi Richard, how are you? Can you hear this okay? Excellent, excellent. Thanks for joining. This is the first one, so we'll see how it goes. Happy New Year, mate. So I'm going to give it 5 minutes or so and see who else joins. Don't really know what I'm going to cover, but I'm going to probably talk crap for a little bit, see if people join, bounce some things off people. We had 3 people, now it's just 2. Yeah, me too. Just crisps. Oh, we have 3 people now. Who's just joined, do we think? Say hi, anyone? Oh, 2 again. I think someone of your means will be a Tesla, surely. So well, at least we know the live stream works, which is good. Considering I'm running this on a 2007 Apple Mac which I didn't think would have the strength to even do a live stream. So that's good. Ah, 5 people. Excellent. Welcome, everyone. Don't forget to don't be shy in the chat. Say hi. This is my first live chat, so feel free to ask questions in the live chat. I'll see if I can answer stuff. If there's things you like, things you don't like, and generally have a chit chat about electric cars for kind of half an hour or so, and then if this is successful, then we'll do another one and see how they go. So I suppose really I was looking recently in ZapMap as well. So ZapMap posted something really interesting. They had something around how the infrastructure had changed over the last year, and apparently devices are up 52% in terms of infrastructure across the UK, which is quite amazing. I'm just looking at the story now, and that says there's now almost 17,000 public EV charging devices in total on ZapMap alone, which means that's providing more than 29,000 connectors across the UK. So infrastructure has significantly increased. In terms of infrastructure, anyone that is on this chat and knows me knows that I still don't have home charging. I've got a video on my YouTube channel called I live in a flat and own an electric car. So that was shot about almost 2 years ago now, which is crazy to think that it's that long ago. And still haven't got home charging, still live in a flat. And I own a BMW i3, a 2017 model. So it's not one of the biggest range cars that you can get out there, but I manage pretty well. My round trip to work is about 70 miles. So that on a daily basis, 70 miles there and back. 70 miles round trip. So, on an average week, I can do up to 350 odd miles in a week, all on public charging. And now, luckily, some work charging in the last sort of 6 months. It's worth checking out, but it's worth noting when I first got my electric car, it was a bit of a gamble. Now this was start of, I suppose, my EV journey almost 2 years ago, and I owned a diesel Qashqai beforehand. It was dying and dead on its arse. Engine had blown up on it, and I really needed to buy a new car. I hadn't even considered buying an electric car at that point. And it was interesting. I tried all the cars. Richard, you're on here. You own a Leaf. I tried a Leaf. It didn't work for me at the time. I tried a couple of hybrids. Nothing really kind of rocked my boat. Nothing really kind of met the bill. And then I came across about 2 or 3 months later, I come across an i3 and absolutely loved the car. But at the time, I literally had bought the car and then thought, crap, I've now got to run this car. I've got to, work out how I charge it. What happens when you actually, when you actually have an electric car. What do you do? How does it work? It's something that I hadn't even considered when I first started driving an electric car, and it was right. I need to work out what I do, and I took advice, as everyone does, from the internet. Got things like ZapMap and PlugShare apps. Started watching YouTube channels, and basically looked for the nearest chargers. Now, at the time, my nearest charger, I hadn't had work charging at this point. My nearest charger was Ecotricity, as I now call them. I'm not knocking Ecotricity, but People that know this sort of stuff obviously know that how, you know, poor they have become. Um, and I used to stop 3 times a week at the same charger on the way home every week, and used to do the job. Now, where I live, I think we had two 7 kilowatt chargers in a car park, and I occasionally used those, but it was a bit of a pain. It was doable. I do long journeys, so part of my job is to go out and go to the sites, you know, out and about, and that also became easier as infrastructure grew around me. And even in my own town, it went from two 7 kilowatt chargers to now it's got something like eight or nine, a fast charger a couple of miles up the road. And over the last almost 2 years, it's just become, for me personally anyway, it's become quite easy. Yeah, Richard. So probably I am. Question from Richard Phillips was, are you mostly using Rapids? Yeah, I would say probably at the moment I'm definitely mostly using Rapids. I think the times that I don't are if I'm charging near home, I will put it in a car park for 3 hours, which I get basically 3 hours three charging at 7 kilowatt chargers. So I stick it in there for 3 hours, and that generally does most of it. At work now, I've got 7 kilowatt chargers, so if I do go to the office now, I can plug in at work and I can charge there. When I come out from work, I'm quite lucky. I have a dedicated parking space now, so I can go in there, plug in, come out. I can preheat my car when I come out, and all that sort of lovely stuff that comes with EVs. But yeah, generally, if I'm out and about or if I'm at general use, it's Rapids for most of the time, unless I'm going somewhere and it's going to be destination charging. Hi Gary, how you doing? Um, Thanks for joining. I'm just rambling, to be honest, about my life story. So you knew most of it already. Thank you for joining. Though this is I'm kind of trying out this live streaming lark and seeing if it's something that's worth doing if people want to see and that sort of stuff. Free Teslas go. um, but yeah, so yeah, it's largely been fast chargers for me since ownership. Um, I've done several journeys now. Me and Gary, who run the EV Musings podcast, we recently done a 600-mile in one day journey in my BMW i3, and even for me, in about almost 2 years of ownership, I found it surprisingly easy. Now, I thought at least we'd have a couple of issues or problems, if nothing else, that we would actually kill each other within a small confined space for I think it was close to 15 hours. We was in a car, which I don't recommend for anyone. It's more than enough for most people. But actually, Gary, I should say, like planned at least one stop and then a backup charger. And actually, we only got to one where one was in use, and it was, I think they were at like 2-3%. And then we thought, you know what, that's not a problem. 5 minutes down the road, and we got onto another rapid charger, and we travel all the way up to where was it? It was quite up north, where the Fastnet chargers were. Hi Tom, how you doing? Good to see you, mate. Yeah, you just caught me in mid ramble, and we'd gone across to right at the top at north, just below Carlisle, come on the way back down, and Sunderland. That was it. Thanks, Gary. And then we kind of come back down, got stuck in Birmingham. At the time, we'd picked like the worst possible days to go in a electric car, but for a good reason. We wanted to prove the fact that you could go long journeys with a small car or a small range car. It was raining horrendously. It was windy. It was just horrible. Kendall had great cake as well, if you remember. And we kind of came down to Birmingham, got stuck in Birmingham. The whole of Birmingham and that area was flooded. Everywhere we turned, we just could not get out of Birmingham. It was bloody ridiculous. And we got back. I think we was back at like the Milton Keynes hub. You know, people that know me, one of my favourite stops for charge. It's I think we was there at early hours of the morning. We charged and kind of got home. Gary will tell you the horrendous onward journey he had. But it proved in a day that you could do that long journey. Okay, there was a lot of stops on there, but actually throughout the whole process and the whole journey, it wasn't tiring at all. So, you know, people that think, oh, you need this 600-mile car to do that, it's just something that just isn't a problem. And even for me, I think even my next car, which may or may not be a Cybertruck, depending on how that works out, my kind of average thing would be about 200 miles. I don't know what people in the live chat think, but what's your ideal range? You know, what do you actually really need? Me personally, a real world 200-mile range would do it for me. Obviously, if the Cybertruck comes off, apparently that's like 400 or 500 miles, which is more than enough. And worst case, if you get iced at a charger, you can actually park on people's cars to, you know, if you need to charge. So, you know, no problem there. But it's just interesting, really. So Richard, oh, I've never really attempted a journey in my car much more than 155 miles. That's still pretty good though, considering it's a little Leaf. I mean, that's it's more than doable. And I think, you know, there's loads of people that I now know through all the different EV groups that actually, you know, that 155 miles, or you know, an 80-mile range car perhaps that you stop twice or once, like on a longer journey, is really easy. But when you start moving into that just over 200 or 250-mile range, it makes what would normally be not a difficult journey, but a thought out journey, perhaps a bit more. It would make it so much easier. For instance, I regularly go down to the coast towards Yarmouth Way. It's about 120 miles in total to get to really where we need to go. But every time we go there, it's a stop in Norwich, which isn't a bad thing. You know, it's 100 miles, a stop, something to eat, charge up an Instavolt, and then 20 minutes, half an hour later, we're gone again. You know, and we're there, and then on the way back, I kind of top up to go back. So it's easy, really. It just takes, with EVs, or certainly the lower range EVs, it takes planning. And obviously, the more you get to know your car, as I have, and I'm sure all you guys have, that just becomes second nature. You know, if you're going on a longer than what your car can do journey, it's like, right, where do I start? Where's my backup charger? Is there destination charging where I'm going to go, for instance? You know, if you're going to go to somewhere like a shopping and it's a long distance away for whatever reason, you know, you're going to a city to do that sort of thing, then find a destination charger, stick it in a car park for 3 hours, mosey around the city, come back, your car's fully charged. Or, you know, if you know that the city itself hasn't got chargers, then there's usually chargers around it. I've generally, rule of thumb for me, I tend to leave at least 15-20 miles range in the car at any one time, or get down to that range. So I know that within 15-20 miles, on an average, you can probably get somewhere. Now, I know there's parts of Norwich, there's parts of Wales and places like that that still are a little bit barren, but that's coming along. There's been chargers recently in Wales been put in. There's been chargers down like Dorset and Devon and that sort of way. They're starting to come along, and it's just getting easier, really. So yeah, always used to be pretty paranoid in the first 6 months or so. Range anxiety. Now I don't think that anymore. My Leaf is only 3.3 kilowatt onboard charger, which is a bit garbage. Yeah, Richard. I mean, yeah. I mean, I get it. I mean, I think your first 6 months, you do get a bit paranoid. I certainly had, I suppose, range anxiety for the first, certainly for the first month. Once or twice that really was a bit squeaky bum time. You know, it was like down to 0 and then down to ... and then just it carried on. But I got to a charger, but at that time I didn't know what my car could do. Now I do. But now you understand, you learn the planning and that sort of stuff of what you can do. So it's all about planning. So you know, anyone that maybe watches this video afterwards, it's more about, don't be scared of an EV. EVs are a kind of the way I see it. EVs are like new technology. So you know, the first time you went from an old I want to say a smartphone, an old flip phone, where you used to have those like crappy number pads and stuff like that, and then you went to your first iPhone. That complete change in experience and that user experience is so different, and so different to some people. Certainly, you know, there's some people I know that haven't rapid charged, for instance, ever. They just haven't had to, and it scares them because it's something different, it's something new. And you know, they charge at home, but actually, you know, what happens when you turn up to one of these massive rapid chargers? What do you need to do? What cards do you need? Can you do contactless payment? What are each of those big plugs for, like DC and stuff like that? So there are people out there that need that help and need that education, but actually it all starts in that dealership end, where you first buy a car, even if it's secondhand. There needs to be more at that end that helps people on that initial journey, that says, look, this is an EV car, this is everything about it, these are the apps that you might need. Or even if you don't want apps, there are these charging networks that accept contactless payment now, which everyone now knows. I think that over the last 6 months, a lot of the manufacturers have all gone pretty much contactless payment. It's usually the 7 kilowatt chargers that generally aren't now, and there's probably still a few others on the rapids that are, but as a whole, I think I found that most that I've gone to are contactless payment, which is brilliant. It makes it so much easier. You know, you take out your debit card or your Apple Pay Watch or your Apple phone or something like that, and you zap it and away you go. And that's how it should be. Instavolt, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's probably one of the similar ones. And that kind of gave my first kind of, I suppose, experience of how easy a charger could be. And that was one of my first longer trips down to Yarmouth way. And when I turned up, I was like, right, I've had a look on ZapMap and things. I don't know too much about like Instavolt and all the rest of it. I got there and it's like, oh, press button, swipe card, plug in. Okay, that's it. I don't have to do anything else. And it was brilliant. It was easy. Hi guys, hi to Eastgate riders. How are you? Good to have you on the live stream. Thanks for joining. And really, charging as a whole just become, for me personally, it's just become easier. Now I can see where if you're a new EV driver, that could be quite daunting and quite scary, but actually it doesn't have to be. And it's really good that, you know, other YouTubers like myself on Twitter, on Facebook, all the social media outlets that now can help people that are a little bit scared of that initial thought. Myself and Rob Shaw, we run Hearts EVs. There's loads of EV groups around the UK now, and we've even found in the last couple of loads, there's people there that don't own an EV yet, but they're interested and they're a little bit scared of it. But actually, if you start talking to the people that own EVs now and have done for some time, it's like, yeah, do you know what? Maybe it is a little bit different. You know, like I said, me going from a diesel 500-mile range car to an EV with, I would say, 100-mile range was a big difference. But there's loads of benefits that come with that as well. So, you know, you take away that range, which just means you need to do planning and work out your journeys more. But the benefits are less moving parts, less maintenance, cheaper running costs, and no tax. You know, all these benefits that come with it. You know, I went from a £250 a month diesel bill. My average bill now on electricity is about £40. Gary, do you want to talk about Charging Hub, Hammersmith, Gridsoft, Instavolt, Kendall, NG, and Stratford? Yeah, so that's probably a good point actually. So on our recent 600-mile in a day journey with Gary, We come across various I want to say charging hubs as well around the country, as well as some of the other bits and pieces that are coming on. So I'll start with the one at Kendal. So Kendal was an interesting one. We came across this one as part of the journey, and basically you had to go into the multi-story car park, drive all the way around, finally got to the bottom of the car park, and there was like 4 Instavolts, 50 kilowatts each, completely empty. We come in, plugged in, swiped the card, walked off, went in, had coffee and cake. Brilliant experience. Exactly how easy it should be. And 4 in one place means that even if there were a couple of cars there, you were never going to be waiting, which was brilliant. You have other ones like Hammersmith. So again, I've visited there. There is a video of mine on my channel of that as well. And actually that was again another good experience. Now this was BP Chargemaster. There's a massive BP petrol garage in Hammersmith, and they've put in I believe it was 4 150 kilowatt rapid chargers, and there's still a 50 kilowatt there as well. And we went down there to try out. So if you've got one of these, either a Tesla or one of the Model 3 Teslas, or some of the more quicker cars like I-Pace, and obviously the Porsche Taycan and things like that are coming up, these things are ideal because you're gonna go in there, you're gonna plug in, and these things are just gonna zap your electricity so quickly. It's going to be insane. The more cars catch up with that speed, and these are future proofing. The Hammersmith one, to answer your question, Richard, the Hammersmith one really is a big petrol station. But actually, what we saw when we went there was they're starting to facilitate what was normally just a coffee shop and a counter and a kind of shop with a coffee counter, so with free Wi-Fi and things like that. So if you did need to spend 20 minutes, half an hour there on a journey, you can do and can do quite comfortably. So they're learning. Funny enough, I'd done a recent survey for a marketing company about a month ago, and they were researching what forecourts need to do better to facilitate things like electric car charging in them, because they knew that they would have to at some point, and BP have realised this, that they can't just put them everywhere else. Barbers, you haven't got any hair as a charging stop, but maybe a good shout. Coffee and barbers, maybe a good mix. But the facilities there were reasonable. If you go to Milton Keynes charging hub, now that's the thing that I'm a bit torn on. I really like the charging hub. It's got 8 50 kilowatt chargers in the middle. You've got, I think it's 4 Ionities, which are 350 kilowatt chargers for the top end cars. But actually, if you walk across the car park to the bus garage, the facilities are atrocious. The coffee's crap, the food's expensive and crap, the toilets you have to pay for it is crap. But the charging facilities are good, and in fact, Milton Keynes is so full of electric car charging places, then you don't have to use the Milton Keynes hub. But it's good actually if you're like I tend to use it for, is that if I'm going up north, I'll charge there on the way back. And then you've got things like the ones that you've got Engenie that have just put in a big charging hub in the Stratford International Station car park, I believe, and that's got, I think, about 8. Gary, correct me if I'm wrong on here, but I think that was about 8 quite high powered chargers again, which is good. And you've got Stratford Shopping Centre right near. Now, I'm still a little bit torn on that, whether putting fast chargers in shopping centre type places is a good idea. Personally, I would like to see a whole floor of 7 kilowatts. So you come in and it doesn't matter which one you park in, you're always going to get a charge. Now, my experience personally of the Stratford shopping centre chargers have been poor. They've never worked since I've been there. But hopefully that will change. They're the sort of things that a destination charging would be better, but I understand why Engenie have done that as well. And then really the one that I was really excited for, and I probably still am a little bit, is GridServe. Now, GridServe are a massive company that are already in the likes of solar power and things like that. They're bringing, supposedly, going to be building 100 motorway-sized type hubs over the coming years, starting with the first one that's meant to be April time next year in Braintree. And that has a mix of 150, 350, 50 kilowatts, decent shopping, coffee, free Wi-Fi, all that sort of stuff. I've spoken to a few people from GridServe, and all the animations and all the kind of promotional stuff that they've shown looks really good. And they've currently said that they've got groundwork permission and everything else, but at the moment I've not seen anything. So hopefully this year will mean that that will start and that will actually kick off. So I think that's over the next year, if there is things about, you're thinking about getting an EV, or you're not sure, you'll start to see these places pop up, or you'll start to see car parks with, well, what's that? Oh, that's a whole bank of 7 kilowatt chargers. So I always come shopping here, so I know I can charge there if I need to. So the biggest barrier I've always found whenever I've spoken to people was like, well, I don't know where I'm going to charge this or how I'm going to charge. So, well, have you got a driveway at home? Yes, right, okay. Put a charger in at home and put it on a nice cheap green tariff, and away you go. Easy. That covers 90% of your journeys. The other 10%, you use the other stuff. Two e-scale eyes around my way. Charging hubs are a bit of a rarity and poorly located. Whereabouts is that? So it'd be interesting to know location wise. I mean, there's fast chargers and things like that, but depending on whereabouts you guys are located, that could be different. But the biggest one I found is like, that people just generally think that they have to charge it somewhere else, but actually, what do you do at the moment if you've got diesel and petrol? You're basically, hi Rob, how you doing? What do you do actually if you're filling a diesel car or a petrol car? You travel somewhere else to fill up your car, not only in what I find now, I don't know about other EV drivers, but a dirty, smelly petrol station. You pay a lot of money for it. It's combustible and dangerous. You put it in a combustible and dangerous vehicle, and then you drive away. If you've got home parking, and you can put a charger in, easy. You put like you do with your phone. Always compare this to a mobile phone. What do you do with a mobile phone at the end of the day? You plug it in, you wake up in the morning, your phone's charged. Same sort of thing for a car. So that takes care of most of the people that have got that, and those that haven't, the infrastructure, like I was saying earlier, has grown. So to Eastgate riders, Hanworth, West London. My drive home work is Clapham to Hanworth, and I counted 4 on a 12-mile journey. Yeah, I mean, yeah. In terms of charging hubs, there's probably there's only a few scattered around the country at the moment. That will change. I guarantee that will change. And actually, we've seen likes of Engini and Instavolt putting in more than 2 now, more than 2 fast chargers. So even if they're not charging hubs, what you'll find and you'll start to see is bigger ones. So we've always found, some of the hotels starting to have 2 on there and things like that and stuff like that. So what we got? DH Man 1. Hi, how you doing? Our 7 kilowatt chargers in public already a little bit outdated. Newer EVs will increase our bigger capacities and therefore need fast charging. Interested to hear your thoughts on this. Yeah, so I think you're right. I think at the moment that 7 kilowatts are probably not at the moment, because there's a large majority of people with EVs that have, I would say, older generation ones. I even count mine car as an older generation, and that's a 2017, 2018 i3. What I will say is I think those 7 kilowatts will start to become like 22 kilowatts, or you'll start to see 22 kilowatt charging capacities, which, as cars grow in terms of capacity and technology, that will go alongside it. But I think what you'll find at the moment is you'll find that actually destination chargers, where 7 kilowatt chargers should be, is probably ideal still at the moment. I think give it 3, 4, 5 years, that may change and that may need to increase. But at that point, I think the infrastructure around that will change as well. So I think it will balance out. But I think at the moment they're definitely worth it. So, for instance, if you go to the cinema for 3 hours, or you go shopping for 2, 3 hours, things like that, I generally will go to a multi-story near where I live for shopping for sort of 2, 3 hours, or go to the cinema. I'll plug in there, I'll come back out, and you'll be topped up. Don't get me wrong, you won't completely fill your car, but you'll get a reasonable amount back in there. And again, this kind of, I suppose, points to where you are in terms of, can you charge at home? And if you can, then you're just topping up. If it's not, then and that's your only type of charge, then you need to think differently, like I do. So I use a combination of 7 kilowatt slow chargers for, say, work and destination charging and things like that, to fast chargers if I'm going somewhere or on the way to somewhere. So it's they're definitely needed, and I think just the mix of having those is definitely worth it. But I think they will increase. So hope that answers. Yeah, Rob, you're absolutely right. Great for shopping, car parks, places where you'll spend a lot of time. Milton Keynes, yeah. Anyone that is remotely interested in EVs, Milton Keynes is a good place to start if you're kind of at least in that immediate area or around that area. There's not only the EV experience centre where you can go and rent under no obligation an EV for a weekend or a week, so see if it fits your lifestyle. They're not there to sell your car; they're there to kind of promote EV awareness and things like that. And generally, with in Milton Keynes, it kind of shows you how a city can be built with charging infrastructure. They've got something ridiculous like 350 chargers across the city. They've got the charging hub. There's another charging hub being built at the moment, and there's multiple fast chargers around the city as well as 7 kilowatt chargers. And actually, Milton Keynes, and I don't know if Dundee's done this, but in Milton Keynes, if you have a certain badge, you can basically plug into the 7 kilowatt ones, and you haven't got to pay for parking and things like that in certain areas. So it's all these little incentives that I think that will happen more and more. Hi Miles, how you doing? Good to see you. Love when you got to pubs and they have them in there too. McMillan are installing more and more now. Yeah, we've obviously found that recently. One of our me and Rob's Hearts EV first meet up, we in Welling, Engini had put in 2 fast chargers, and they kindly put on both of them for free during that time. But they're ideal. You plug in, you go out, you have something to eat, and you can pop out and unplug and move it when somebody else can do it. So they're ideal, Richard, especially when you're so hammered you have to leave it there and it's full in the morning. Well, yeah, but then you should have an overstay charge. So yeah, more for you if you do that. But yeah, so I think what we found over the last year, certainly, there's the likes of BP Charge Master, Engini, Insta360, all these companies, they're going after the chains now, which is brilliant. So like the pub chains and the supermarket chains and all that sort of stuff. Pod Point, I think, are in with like Tesco's and things like that. So they're putting them in the right places. The other battle that as EV drivers you will start to see more and more of, I think, is the icing. Not only icing from normal internal combustion engine cars, but unfortunately from other EV drivers as well that think electric charging points are parking spots. Um, I think the best way that me and Gary saw this, I think when we was up north somewhere, and funny enough, the taxi driver who owned an EV taxi was part there, who talks for Britain more so than a normal taxi driver, I might add. But he actually put a green cone in front of the rapid charger for the express purpose that most EV drivers now, I think it's kind of common knowledge that you move that out of the way, you charge, you get your charge in, and then you put it back. And that stupid little thing actually does prevent a lot of people from parking there, because they just think that it's either broken or the parking space isn't for use. It's a great little thing. Richard, what do you think is behind ice, and is it just ignorance? There's a bit of both. I think there's education is one. Education, I would say, for EV drivers especially. You know, if you're an EV driver, there's etiquette when it comes to charge places and stuff like that. You charge your car. When it's finished, you move. You park somewhere else, so somebody else can charge. If you've got enough in there, like you're 80% and you don't need more than that, don't sit there for the next 20 minutes, half an hour, and then you know, then move, because there could be someone you know, with real need. When it comes to, I would say, the real problem is where you come to chargers, especially on some of the 7 kilowatt chargers. And I know this does happen on the Rapids, but where people just park there. I've had this, I think it's Letchworth, where there is a Rapid, and that Rapid has two clearly marked charging bays, and it's right next to front doors. And somebody, I've seen a couple of people park right in the middle of it, and tend to. I actually had a conversation with one woman. I said, look, you know, it's not a parking bay. Could you please move? I need to charge. I'm dropping off someone. It's like, I'm sorry, it's not a parking bay. Move your car somewhere else. Um, and it's just trying to be polite when they do those type of things. But unfortunately, there's a lot of ignorance around it. You know, if you go to some of the motorway services, what I found is, like, you know, like Ecotrosty are generally near to the front doors of ones. I think Peterborough and some of the other ones are quite close. And what I found is drivers tend to just park in those bays because they're nice and close. And then they get out, they go off and have lunch for an hour and all the rest of it. And then actually you just can't get to the chargers to charge, obviously, when they are working. But yeah, there is I think there's a lot of ignorance around that from normal ICE car drivers. And actually, we've seen, you know, the worst kind of stuff, which is in America, where I think trucks have blatantly blocked Tesla charging bays, which recently that's been solved by actually a Model X and Model S actually towing them out of the way. So when Cybertruck comes, then they will just basically park over them to actually get to the parking bay. But yeah, I think there's selfishness, there's ignorance, there is some education where people just either just don't know, or they're just not looking. But I think one of the there's a couple of things. There's a simple thing of resolving it, like, you know, like the cone, for instance, and then there's overstay parking, or people that shouldn't be there, or they should be patrolled to the point where, you know, you're not charging, you're not plugged in, you're blatantly not an EV or something like that, that says, right, you know, you need to get a ticket. So at least then it starts educating. Unfortunately, the bad way, where it's costing you money if you're going to be there. So yeah, duct tape and a spade, and maybe some a bag of lime and something like that in the boot, perhaps, eh? um, but it is annoying, and it is, I would say, probably for me, one of the banes. Now, I'm quite lucky, touch wood, I've not actually come across that too often. But when I have, it's usually at the point where I do need to charge, or I'm close to where I need to charge, and I've got about enough to get somewhere else, which, you know, is a pain. I've not come across this point where I can't charge and actually I'm absolutely stuffed. So, you know, it's not happened to me as much, luckily. But I know there's people, certainly on Twitter, on my Twitter feed and things like that it's happened quite a lot. So yeah, I get it completely. Anyway, I've rambled for about 45 minutes apparently. Damn, you poor people. What is your opinion on inevitability effect of increasing uptake of EVs on the price of electricity? DNH Man 1. Opinion on the inevitable effect of increasing uptake of EVs. Yeah, I mean, it could get that point. It could get to the point where people start to increase the price of electricity because companies are making less. I'm certainly expecting to a degree that, likes of BP Chargemaster and people that own forecourts, that will have these on their shell as well, that will have their prices higher than others. We've already seen the prices go up. Hopefully they won't go to the point where it's petrol prices. If that happens, then it's got to be to the point where like the market has just switched from EVs completely to diesel and electric. So I think that may or may not happen, and hope it's not a quick thing that will happen. I think that's longer term. Gary C. Pop quiz: name the 2 largest charging companies by number of chargers. You get. Let me see. Probably. I'm going to say BP Charge Master and Podpoint. But I'm probably wrong. And Gary, I know you'll point out if I'm definitely wrong. So feel free to point in the comments. And 2 Escape riders, sorry. What's to do if you don't have a driveway? Can you still install a charger? No, unfortunately. I mean, I'm a prime example, to be honest, of this. You know, I own an electric car. I live in a flat. Don't have access to home charging whatsoever. I don't have a driveway. My landlord wouldn't let me put a charger in, even though I said that I would pay for it. But as I've proved over the last 2 years, it's possible even without a driveway. You know, I think before you get an electric car, there's a couple of questions you need to ask. You need to ask, what's my actual miles I do per day? Oh, Gary, I got half of it right then. Give me that. But you can look at how much actual mileage you do on a daily basis realistically, because most people think they do more than what they actually do, and then you look at those longer term journeys that you may or may not do. So, you know, if this, for instance, if you're a traveling salesman and you do 600, 700, 800 miles, every couple of days, then maybe you need to look at the higher price cars or different cars. But certainly, if you're doing low mileage and things like on a daily basis, it becomes completely doable. Rapid charging and things like that for most of it. So it is they usually go, I suppose, live YouTube thing. If you guys did enjoy that, or you find these sort of things interesting, let me know in the comments. Maybe some of the future subjects you want me to cover. More than happy to do things like this where we just bamble around for a bit and maybe have a few questions here and there as well, where I can see if I can answer, and obviously other people in there answer. If you're not a subscriber and you're on here, then thanks for watching, and please subscribe. Don't forget to share all the videos and stuff like that with other people. And until next time, thank you very much, guys, for watching, and I will see you all again very soon. So thanks very much, and I appreciate everyone joining today for entertaining my little whim of doing this. So drink next. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you all very soon, guys. Thanks very much.